Hundreds of Sri Lankan students clashed with the police in the suburbs of capital city Colombo. The protesters were marching from the University of Kelaniya to Central Colombo, but riot police blocked the path. The students then returned to the university campus where they continued the demonstrations. A number of the student protesters were detained by the police. They are part of the Inter-University Students' Federation. The union had earlier played a key role in countrywide protests that led to the ouster of the Rajapaksas. The protesters have condemned the government for arresting individuals involved in earlier demonstrations under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. They also demanded the repeal of the legislation.
අපි කියන විශේෂයෙන්ම වසන්ත සිරිරම් මහමුදුරෝ වහාම නිදහස් කළ යුතුයි. ඒ වගේම ජනතාවට ආර්ථික සහන ලබා දිය යුතුයි. මේ සියලු දේවල් ඉටු වෙන තාක් අන්තර් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ ශිෂ්‍ය බල මණ්ඩල විදිහට වගේම අන්තර් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ භික්ෂු බල මණ්ඩල විදිහට මේ රටේ සියලු ජනතාව එක්ක අපි සටන් කරනවා. ඉතිහාසයේ වගේම මහාපාරේ අරගලය තුලින් මේ සටන් ජයග්‍රහණය කරනවා කියන එක බොහොම දරියොත්ව මේ රයිදි කියනවා.
The convener of the Inter-University Student Union and the convener of the Inter-University Buddhist Monks Union have been under detention for 2 months under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. Sri Lanka is currently witnessing its biggest financial crisis since its independence. Earlier this year, Prime Minister Gotabaya Rajapaksa and President Mahinda Rajapaksa were bundled out after nationwide protests against the handling of the economy. Let's talk more about this. Joining us live from Colombo is Dasuni Athauda, who is our correspondent. Hi, Dasuni. The two protest march organizers have been detained for quite some time now. What's the president's office saying about this matter, and is the government doing anything to quell the dissent?
Well, good morning, Eric. The latest from the protest that took place yesterday is that all those who were detained yesterday are due to be produced in court this morning. So we will have a verdict as to what happens to the 8 protesters who were arrested and detained yesterday. But the overall picture is that the president's office has made it very clear that for any protest to take place, it is now vital and mandatory to inform the relevant police officials to which this protest will fall as a jurisdiction to, for that to be notified, for that police station to be notified well in advance. We're looking at 6 hours prior before these protests take place. Now, this has been the reasoning for these police officers to go ahead and detain these protesters, while the protesters' viewpoint at large is that they feel that the detention of their union leaders and their key activists have been unfair, as they have been kept against their will under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, which in itself is a controversial act here in Sri Lanka.
Dasuni, there are anti-government protest marches that have been planned for this month and next. Have Sri Lankans already lost faith or hope with their new president and his government? And having that in mind, is the economy showing any sign of recovery?
Well, at the moment, it is clear that current President Ranil Wickremesinghe does in fact have his own set of opposers and people who do dissent him as well, which is why these protests are taking place, where a majority are of the view that the new president himself is safeguarding the Rajapaksas, to which the citizens and the public at large worked and protested so hard to remove. Now, yes, there are scheduled protests that are to take place this month, next month, and in the coming months. But in terms of economic recovery, we do see slight improvements in certain aspects of the economy. However, still, it is not as sufficient to say that, this is recovering at a steady pace. Nevertheless, there are signs of a slight recovery.
Finally, Dasuni Athauda, what's the status of the Rajapaksas?
Well, it is evident that the Rajapaksas are making a comeback. They are seen organizing these the massive events and rallies and conferences in the outskirts, not in the central part of Colombo, but more or less away from Colombo, talking to the masses. And from their speeches, it is clear that they do say that they did make a few mistakes and that they do intend to stay in power, which will be interesting provided that the current president, Ranil Wickremesinghe, constitutionally gets the right to dissolve parliament early next year. So early next year, we will see whether the Rajapaksas do intend to run for an election again, provided that the president does use his power to dissolve parliament.
Our correspondent from Colombo, Dasunia Tauda, thank you. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.